The surgical ward came alive before sunrise. Fluorescent lights hummed on one by one, revealing stainless steel counters wiped down too quickly, floors that still smelled faintly of disinfectant, and a row of patient rooms where machines breathed. For people who could not. The night shift handed over in low voices, clipped and tired. Clipboards changed hands. Names were read. Problems were minimized. She stood at the edge of it all. The new nurse wore standard scrubs, freshly pressed, no wrinkles at the elbows. Her shoes were clean. Too clean for someone who had worked here long. Her ID badge still resisted the curve of her chest, swinging stiffly when she moved. No one asked her where she trained. No one asked her anything at all. Put her on prep. And transport, a surgeon said, already turning away. She can't mess that up. Someone nodded. Someone else smirked. She accepted the assignment without comment. In operating room 3, the trauma case was being prepped. A middle-aged man, unconscious, intubated, blood pressure unstable. The surgeons debated incision timing like they were discussing weather. One of them joked about residents and their shaking hands. Another laughed. She checked the patient's wristband. Name, age, allergies. She read them once. Then again, her thumb rested lightly against the pulse point on his neck. Feeling the rhythm not counting, just confirming. A monitor beeped out. Of sync. She adjusted the forward line, correcting a kink that no one else had noticed. The beep normalized. No one thanked her. No one saw, when an instrument tray was set down in Redelight close to the sterile field. She moved it back without breaking conversation. A smooth step in, a smooth step out. The tray never clattered. Nothing drew attention. The surgeons continued talking. She watched their hands. Not critically. Observe how they held instruments. How they positioned themselves. Who rushed. Who hesitated. Who filled silence with noise. There was a rhythm to the room, and she learned it quickly. In the corridor outside, security walked past in pairs, radios low, hospital security soft uniforms. Soft posture. Their presence was routine, almost decorative. She noticed the spacing between them anyway. The blind spots near the stairwell. The camera that pointed half a degree too far left. She said nothing. During a brief lull, a senior nurse leaned toward another and murmured, "She's very quiet." The other shrugged. "New ones usually are. It'll pass." In the supply room, she restocked gloves by size, aligning the boxers so the labels faced forward. She checked expiration dates without being asked. She memorized where everything was stored, shelf by shelf, drawer by drawer. When someone called out for gauze, she handed it over before the request finished forming. Still, no one learned her name. At mid-morning, an argument broke out over a missing chart. Voices rose. A surgeon snapped at a resident. The resident flushed. Defensive. The charge nurse tried to calm them. She stepped forward and placed the chart on the counter. "It was misfiled under pre-op," she said, quietly. The argument collapsed in on itself. No one apologized. The surgeon took the chart and walked away. She stepped back to the wall. For a moment, the ward settled into something close to calm. Machines clicked. Shoes squeaked. Life continued under bright lights and false certainty. Then, somewhere deeper in the hospital, a door closed to hard nod slammed. Closed with intention. She felt it more than heard it. A subtle change in pressure. A disturbance in the usual noise. Her eyes lifted not to the door, but to the ceiling. To the direction sound traveled when it was meant to carry. She adjusted her stance slightly. feet shoulder-width apart, balanced, ready, without looking ready. No one noticed. A surgeon scoffed as he passed her. "Relax," he said, mistaking her stillness for nerves. "It's just another day." She didn't respond. She looked down at the patient on the table, then back toward the corridor. Her face remained calm, professional, empty of expression. But inside, something had already shifted. The ward was still pretending it was an ordinary morning. It would not stay that way. The first sign was paperwork, not the dramatic kind. No alarms, no raised voices. Just a form that didn't belong where it was. She noticed it while transferring supplies between rooms. A patient intake sheet clipped to the outside of a chart against protocol. The handwriting was neat, deliberate. But the admitting department code was wrong. Not a mistake someone new would make. A mistake someone rushing might. She paused for half a second, long enough to read it, long enough to remember it. Then she slid the paper back where it belonged and continued down the corridor. The ward moved on autopilot. Surgeons rotated in and out. Residents followed, trying to look confident. Phones buzzed with messages that were skimmed and ignored. Somewhere above them, administration held a meeting that would end with nothing decided. She assisted where she was told. Held retractors, recorded vitals, cleaned what needed cleaning. She never interrupted, never corrected aloud. But when a medication dosage was read too quickly, she adjusted the syringe before it reached the IV port. The patient never knew. A senior. Surgeon noticed just barely. "Hey," he said, irritation more than curiosity. "That wasn't what I said." She met his eyes, calm, respectful. "The dosage on the chart was updated 10 minutes ago," she replied. Pharmacy corrected the concentration. He checked. His jaw tightened when he realized she was right. "Fine," he muttered, already moving on. The moment passed. But something subtle lingered in the air after he left. A shift in how people glanced at her. Not respect. Not yet. Just awareness. In the late morning, security radios crackled more often than usual. Short bursts. No codes announced. The guards spoke quietly, turning their bodies away from staff when they answered. One of them stood too close to a stairwell door, blocking it without explanation. She saw that too. During a routine transport, an elevator stalled for 3 seconds between floors. Just long enough to be noticed. Just long enough for tension to ripple through the group inside. Someone joked about old infrastructure. Laughter followed. She watched the floor indicator. When the doors opened, she guided the gurney out first. Scanning the hallway without turning her head. Nothing visible. Nothing obvious. But the rhythm was off. At noon, a patient coded 2 rooms down. The response was immediate. Controlled chaos. She moved with the others, hands steady, voice low when she spoke. She anticipated needs before orders were given. When the patient stabilized, the room exhaled together. A resident leaned toward another. Anne whispered, "She's good." Not loud enough for praise. Just acknowledgement. In the aftermath, his equipment was reset and staff dispersed. A hospital administrator entered the ward. Not unusual. But he wasn't smiling. He didn't stop to chat. He spoke briefly to the charge nurse, then left the way he came. Foam already at his ear. She watched him go. Later, near the nurse's station, a surgeon scoffed at the delay in imaging. "Security says it's nothing," he said. "Some kind of drill upstairs. Overreaction." No one questioned it. She didn't either. She checked the nearest exits, counted steps. Not consciously. It was habit. She noted which doors were locked, which were not, which windows had been sealed shut and which still opened a few inches for ventilation. When a junior nurse asked her where she trained, she answered simply, "Overseas." That was all. The afternoon light slanted through the high windows, turning the floors pale gold. The ward looked almost peaceful. Machines hummed. Patients slept. The illusion held, until a hospital-wide message appeared briefly. On one screen near the station, then vanished. Not an alert, just a system refresh. She caught the header before it disappeared. Restricted. Her hand tightened once around the edge of the counter, then relaxed. Whatever was coming was being handled quietly. Poorly, but quietly. She returned to her tasks. Calm, invisible. But now, when footsteps echoed down the corridor, she no longer dismissed them as routine. She listened. The call came through. A channel no one on the ward was supposed to hear. It didn't ring. It didn't announce itself. One of the wall-mounted screens near the nurse's station flickered, froze for half a second, then displayed a plain text line before anyone thought to look. The charge nurse frowned. "Is that it again?" No one answered. A surgeon waved it. Off without slowing his pace. Ignore it. If it's important, administration will call. They always assumed that she didn't. She was standing 3 steps back, hands folded loosely in front of her, watching the screen like it might speak. Again. Her face showed nothing, but her attention sharpened. Priority lines were layered. This one sat beneath hospital administration, beneath regional emergency services. It didn't belong to the hospital at all. The message disappeared. 5 seconds later, a second transmission came through audio this time. No identifier. No preamble. Just breathing, controlled, measured. Someone waiting to be acknowledged. The charge nurse hesitated, then tapped the console. "This is Surgical Ward C. Identify yourself." A pause, then a voice, low and precise. Not rushed. Not loud. Maintain current operations. Do not announce. Lock external access points on your level only. The charge nurse blinked. "Sir, you need to route that through negative," the voice said. Time sensitive. The line went dead. A surgeon scoffed openly now. "That's not how this works." Another nodded. "Probably a training exercise. Someone forgot to label it." The charge nurse looked uncertain. "Should I call security?" Security was already calling. Radios crackled louder now, sharper bursts of sound cutting through the ward. 2 guards moved quickly past the station, no longer pretending to stroll. One of them glanced at the screen, then away. Jaw tight, she stepped closer to the station. Locking only this level would trap patients. The charge nurse said, half to herself. "Yes," she replied, softly. The charge nurse turned, surprised. "What?" She met her eyes, calm and steady. "Which is why they asked you not to announce it." The charge nurse frowned. "And you know that how?" She didn't answer. She looked past her, down the corridor, where an automatic door had failed to close fully. Just an inch open. Enough. Without asking permission, she walked over and pressed. It shut. The door sealed with a soft hiss. No one stopped her moments later. A third message came through. This one routed directly to administration terminals. Staff could see the glow through glass walls, but not the content. Phones started buzzing. Conversations died mid-sentence. The ward felt smaller. A patient stirred, agitated by the change in atmosphere. A machine alarmed briefly before being silenced. Someone laughed nervously. She repositioned a gurney closer to the wall, clearing the corridor without explanation. She moved a supply cart out of a blind corner. Each adjustment was minor, reasonable, easy to ignore, but together they began to change the shape of the space. A resident leaned toward her. Is something going on? She considered him for a moment. Young, tired, trying to be brave. Stay where you can see both exits, she said, and keep your hands free. He nodded without realizing why. At the far end of the ward, an elevator chimed once, then stopped. Security's voices rose now, no longer careful. Someone mentioned stairwells. Someone else said the word external. A surgeon turned sharply. What is happening? No one answered him. She checked the time on the wall clock. Then the reflection of the corridor in the glass of a framed certificate. Her posture shifted again, subtle, almost imperceptible. Weight balanced. Hands relaxed at her sides. This was no drill. And whoever had made that call knew exactly where they were. The first scream didn't come from the corridor. It came from a patient room. A sharp, panicked sound cut short almost immediately. Not by reassurance, by force. Something heavy hitting the floor. A monitor alarm spiked, shrill and insistent. Every head turned. Before anyone could move, the ward doors at the far end slid open wider than they were supposed to. Not forced, authorized. A man stepped through, wearing a hospital jacket that didn't fit quite right. Too stiff at the shoulders. His eyes were scanning, not searching. Security shouted. The man didn't run. He raised his hand. There was metal in it. Cales arrived all at once. Patients cried out. A nurse dropped a tray. A surgeon froze mid-step, staring as if disbelief might stop what was happening. The alarm from the patient room screamed louder, joined by another. She moved, not fast. Decisive. She reached the nurse's station and pulled the emergency divider halfway down, not to block the corridor, but to funnel it. She guided two staff members behind her with a firm hand at their backs. Down, she said quietly. They obeyed. The man advanced 2 steps, shouting something that dissolved into noise. Saki hesitated. They weren't trained for this. Not here. Not with patients everywhere. A resident tried to run past her toward the room with the alarm. She stopped him with one hand on his chest. Not yet, she said. He stared at her, shocked. Someone's in there? I know. The man's attention snapped toward the movement. The metal in his hand lifted higher. A patient screamed again. She raised her voice for the first time. Sir. It cut through the noise. Not loud. Clear. The man looked at her. Put it down, she said. You're in the wrong place. For half a second something flickered across his face. Surprise, not fear. Then he laughed, harsh, unstable. You think you're in charge? He shouted. She didn't answer. She shifted 1 step to the left, drawing his line of sight away from the clustered staff behind her. It was a small movement. Intentional security finally rushed him. Too late. He swung. A guard went down hard, crashing into a supply cart. The cart tipped, spilling equipment across the floor. The noise was deafening. She moved again. She grabbed the fallen cart and shoved it sideways, blocking the corridor between the man and the patient rooms. She dragged the injured guard back with controlled force, keeping her body between him and the threat. The man tried to follow. She kicked the spilled equipment forward, not at him, but at his feet. He stumbled. Just enough. Security tackled him then. Messy. Desperate. The metal clattered across the floor, skidding to a stop inches from her shoe. She didn't look down at it. She looked past the man, toward the patient room where the first scream had come from. The door was ajar. She moved to it, slipping inside as security struggled behind her. The patient on the bed was conscious now, eyes wide, blood pressure crashing. The monitor screamed. She shut the door behind her and locked it. Her hands moved quickly but precisely. She silenced the alarm, stabilized the line, adjusted oxygen. Her breathing remained steady. Outside, raised voices, footsteps, orders shouted. And contradicted side, the room was quiet again. The patient gripped her wrist weakly. Am I going to die? She met his eyes, calm, certain. No, she said. Not today. When the door finally opened, a surgeon rushed in, frantic. What happened out there? She stepped aside, making space. Security breach, she said. Contained for now. The surgeon stared at the patient, then at her. How did you? Another? Alarm cut him off. This one wasn't local. It was hospital-wide, and it wasn't over. The hospital-wide alarm didn't wail. It pulsed a low, repeating tone that bypassed panic and went straight to tension. The lights didn't change. The screens didn't flash evacuation orders. This wasn't designed for the public. It was meant for people who already knew what to do. Most of the ward didn't. Surgeons argued immediately. Voices overlapped, sharp. With authority they no longer fully possessed. We need to clear the floor. No, we finished the procedure. Who authorized a lockdown?